On this edition of the program, ads, the money gulf between the Kamala Harris campaign and the Trump campaign, as well as a look down ballot at the Senate. Have the Republicans given up on a few states? And Jen Briney joins us to talk about the lingering doubts after the DNC. It's all coming up. This episode of Politics is brought to you by Kalshi, where there is a market for everything and you can take advantage of your knowledge. Why be right for free? On Kalshi, there's a market for everything, and I want to show you one that I am very interested in, and that is how many presidential debates this year. Only on Kalshi is it legal for you to put money into this market and win money back. So the Kalshi market right now is absolutely split on this. 45% of the market believes that there will only be two debates, the debate that's already happened and the one that will happen on September 10th. And 45% believe that there will be a third debate added. Meanwhile, if you want to go really galaxy brain, you can make a lot of money by taking the position that only 5% of the market has taken, saying that there will only be one debate. That means the September 10th debate is going to fall apart. And by the way, it almost did this week. So that 5% might have looked really, really, really good. Head on over there right now, Kalshi.com. That is KALSHI.com/PX3. We are giving a $20 bonus for the first 500 people who join when you go to that link and deposit $100. Again, KALSHI.com/PX3. Thank you to Kalshi for supporting independent political journalism. Hello and welcome everybody to the Politics program for September 4th, 2024. Your old pal Justin Robert Young joining you here. I am jacked up, baby. I am jacked up. It's after Labor Day. I am on somewhere between 3 and 4 hours of sleep that gets interrupted every few hours because I have a bouncing, beautiful baby daughter that is currently cluster feeding, which means eating forever. So far, parenthood has been very similar to my job as a waiter when I used to be a waiter. And I know this feeling because sometimes there are tables that just will not leave. That's what my daughter's like when it comes to feeding. Oh, good Lord. Just keeps going. You're like, are you sure? Do you want the check? And they're like, no. Don't want to go to sleep. Not just yet. But I was thinking about taking some time off. I was thinking about doing one episode a week. But how can I? We're in the end game now. In any election, from the beginning of our modern era, from the pre-primary period, Labor Day to Election Day is when it gets for real. So what I wanted to do was just take a general look at where we are right now and take a look at some indicators as to where we are going. Let's go ahead and swing through the Real Clear Politics average right now. It has Harris at plus 2.3. She has led every poll since, mid-August, where a Rasmussen poll had Trump up 2. That is consistent, so that is something that you do want to pay attention to. What is better for Harris is that she is starting to get into not the Biden range of 2020, which was like 6, 7, 8, 9 points ahead of Trump nationally, but she is now hitting plus 5 in a USA Today Suffolk poll. She is hitting 5 in an ABC News poll. We have not seen some of the high quality polls that we really want to see to determine exactly where her post-convention bump is. It does not appear that we have gotten a big explosion from that, but still something to pay attention to. I have told you, however, that to me, the two states that I am paying the most attention to, because I think that they are most win if you are Kamala Harris, are Pennsylvania and Georgia. So here's Pennsylvania, multi-candidate ballot. You have Harris at 0.25. So that is consistent with her national number. That is very good for her. She has expanded that recently with a Bloomberg Morning Consult poll that was taken at the end of August. So we will see whether or not she gets a big bump coming out of the convention in Pennsylvania. Georgia, meanwhile, is a Trump 0.4 advantage. The most recent two polls have Harris up +2, +1. Now, it has become popular to say, well, you know, she doesn't really need Pennsylvania. She doesn't really need Georgia. If she wins North Carolina, if she wins Wisconsin, if she wins Michigan, if she wins Arizona, if she wins Nevada, then there's different ways that she can win. And that is absolutely true by the numbers. I tend to believe that you are only ever going to flip certain regions one way or another. So let me put it this way. The Rust Belt is going to tilt, by and large, either left or right. If it tilts very right, then you have states like Minnesota that are in play. If it tilts more to the left, you have states like Pennsylvania that are in play. Pennsylvania is a state that has a lot of DNA with Ohio. Ohio right now is anywhere between 5 and 9 points red. So if you take Ohio and then put in two gigantic major metropolitan areas that have a lot of liberals in them, like Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, that's where you get Pennsylvania. So I believe she needs to win Pennsylvania. I also believe that she needs to win Georgia because Georgia has what she wants: a high African-American population and a high affluent suburbanite population. One that had no problem voting for Brian Kemp as a Republican, but abandoned Donald Trump in 2020. In my mind, and this is just my theory, those two states are the election. So let's take a look at something else. And these were numbers that dropped today courtesy of Ad Impact Politics. It's a great Twitter account. I encourage anybody who wants to follow this kind of stuff like I do to follow it. Here's the August recap of presidential TV spending. And it quite possibly could be the last month in our electoral calendar where Donald Trump or Republicans spent more money on television than the Democrats did. They outspent the Democrats $143 million to $137 million. Democrats barely outspent Republicans in Pennsylvania and Michigan, but got outspent in Georgia, Wisconsin, Arizona, North Carolina, and then there was some moderate outspending in Nevada by the Democrats. But that is not going to continue. The Democrats are opening up a big money advantage when it comes to television ad spending. Take a look at these numbers. Pennsylvania, the Democrats are outspending. Georgia, Michigan, Arizona, Wisconsin, North Carolina, and Nevada. And some of these numbers are gigantic gulfs. They're essentially neck and neck in Pennsylvania and Georgia. But Michigan, the Democrats are spending $55.2 million, where the Republicans are spending $6.6. Arizona, $34.9 million, and the Republicans are spending $9.9. Wisconsin, $33.1 million, while the Republicans are spending $3.5. North Carolina, $26 million to the Republicans, $2.8, and Nevada, $19.5 to the Republicans, $1.4. Here's how that breaks down. The Kamala Harris campaign itself is spending $107.4 million. The Future Forward PAC is spending $152.6 million, and other groups are spending $42.5. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's campaign is spending $57.6. MAGA Inc., one of their big PACs, is spending $57.4, and other groups are spending just under $20 million. That's a big gulf. And it comes at a time when I believe Republicans should be spending a lot of money, because what the Democrats are desperate to try and do is redefine who Kamala Harris is. Nothing that Kamala Harris has done before right now has been particularly popular. She has only been a popular politician for 2 months. And beyond the hype and hope of Democrats that are very enthusiastic to have a good, clean shot at beating Donald Trump when they thought that that train had passed them by with Joe Biden, there will be a second look by the voters that will actually decide this election, who are going to say, yeah, but wait, didn't she suck? And when they think that, they're going to see ads like this.
We all know costs are too high, but while corporations are gouging families, Trump is focused on giving them tax cuts. But Kamala Harris is focused on you.
Building up the middle class will be a defining goal of my presidency.
She'll make groceries more affordable by cracking down on price gouging. And she'll cut housing costs by taking on corporate speculators. Middle-class families build America. We need a leader who has their back.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
All right, let's break down this ad for a second, because I think it's very effective. It is a catch-up ad, something that the Democrats and the Kamala Harris campaign are trying to make up for the fact that they know they are about 10 points down from Donald Trump in public opinion on who is going to handle the economy better. Meanwhile, there is blame from the American public to the Biden administration on why groceries have gotten so sky high. The explanation from the Harris campaign is price gouging. And so this is how they spell it out.
We all know costs are too high.
So there we go. Start things out. We're not doing the Joe Biden, you're holding it wrong strategy. You are already distancing yourself from Joe Biden when he was like, no, actually the economy's great. The economy's amazing. No. We're going to start out first things first, right off rip. We all know prices are too high.
But while corporations are gouging families, Trump is focused on giving them tax cuts.
Now we are tying the reason why they're too high. There are evil corporations. Donald Trump is in league with evil corporations. He is not the populist that he makes himself out to be. He is indeed the slick rich guy who just wants to put more money in the pockets of the fat cats.
But Kamala Harris is focused on you.
There we go. And this is something that anybody who's listened to the Hacks on Tap podcast with David Axelrod, who now has likely a lot more synergy with the Kamala Harris campaign, as David Plouffe, one of his old buddies from the Obama era, is now partly running it. We have no idea exactly how much. But one of the things that he's been saying forever, it tests well, it does well, it is the way that Barack Obama beat Mitt Romney. I'm for you, he's for himself. He's for the rich, I'm for the middle class. We are 10 seconds into this ad, and they have already gotten to, we understand prices are high. We are working on a solution. Donald Trump will never work on a solution. Kamala Harris is uniquely suited to work on that solution.
Building up the middle class will be a defining goal of my presidency.
She'll make groceries more affordable by cracking down on price gouging.
More how? How are we going to do it? We are going to crack down on price gouging.
And she'll cut housing costs by taking on corporate speculators.
Corporate speculators are not something that I think the average American says at the kitchen table. But again, this is not an ad built on strength. This is an ad trying to mitigate a weakness. So you don't really need to have the math totally add up. These conversations don't need to totally connect with the average person. But still, housing is high because of corporate speculators. Fine, just move on.
Middle-class families build America. We need a leader who has their back.
For those of you who are only listening, most of the B-roll here is Kamala Harris interacting with regular people. Middle class. Kamala's middle class. Donald Trump is rich. Kamala's middle class. Have you heard that she's middle class? She worked at McDonald's. Or maybe she didn't. We don't know. Meanwhile, this money gap is an absolute issue when it comes to the down ballot races for the Republicans. And you are seeing in Politico this morning, as we record this on Tuesday, some griping about it. House and Senate Republicans are starting to panic about a huge money gap. And right there up front as the key art image is Carrie Lake. And here's why. In terms of post-Labor Day spending for the Senate campaigns, Republicans are going to outspend Democrats in 3 states: Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Montana. Remember that they tie the Democrats if they win West Virginia. They take the Senate if Tim Sheehy can beat John Tester in Montana. Right now that looks likely, but the 2 biggest pickup opportunities that the Republicans very clearly see are also in Pennsylvania, which again is going to be very close, and Ohio, where Donald Trump is going to win fairly handily, but Sherrod Brown is a very entrenched incumbent, and Bernie Moreno does not have a history in this, and so he's going to have a lot to make up for. He is going to run behind Donald Trump. Who knows if it's going to be as much as the polling says right now, but he needs to establish himself. He needs to create a credible narrative as to why he is going to be the new senator from Ohio. Right now, he's got the money to do it. But let me show you guys where some of the rest of these states are, because I think it's pretty clear that the national Republicans are saying to these candidates, you're on your own. Arizona with Kari Lake, over a $30 million gulf between the spending from the Democrats and the Republicans. Similar in the Nevada race between Jackie Rosen and Sam Brown. Michigan, Mike Rogers versus Alyssa Slotkin. Similar numbers. As well as Wisconsin, Eric Hovde versus Tammy Baldwin. Now, at the same time, you can kind of tell where the Democrats have given up, including Texas and Florida, where they are spending $0. And interestingly, the Maryland Senate seat, Larry Hogan, that has a big Republican advantage, which is pretty interesting. So we pointed out that Pennsylvania has got a lot of money going into it. What message are they trying to get out to the people? Here's an example, a new Dave McCormick ad that is hitting the airwaves today.
I'm Dave McCormick, and I approve this message. 3 high schoolers die from fentanyl every day. As a sheriff, I see it. As a father, it happened to me. It was all fentanyl. Then it was the lethal dose level. As a dad, it's a household I'm protecting. I couldn't keep him from it. If the border was secure, chances are my son will be alive today. We can't bring back the people we've lost, but we can get rid of the weak politicians like Bob Casey who let it happen.
We are at that time. We are at the "this politician killed my son" period of the process. And as I wrap up this segment, I just want to let everybody know that we are in Thunderdome now. This is the road of trials. This is prison rules. This is where things get nasty. It is lie now and clean up later. It is exaggeration as blood sport. It is double-barreled hyperbole until you get what you need to get, and that is elected. More people in a booth to hit your button than your opponents. I have long said that the problem with our modern society that has become far too polarized, in my opinion, and specifically far too much of a fanboy culture for these political parties, is not this time, Labor Day until Election Day. This is when we're supposed to get very, very tribal. This is when we're supposed to put on our team jerseys and start punching each other. This is it. Don't get scared now. This is your update brought to you by TakePoliticsSeriously.com. That's where you need to go if you want to get 2 bonus episodes of this show each and every week. No matter what, I'm showing up for you. I don't care how much sleep I get. I could be on 30 minutes sleep. I'm showing up for you guys in the Patreon episodes. We're riding this one until the wheels fall off. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. $3 level gets you 2 bonus episodes. Let's get to some of the news that we didn't get a chance to cover on this episode. Former New York State official Linda Sun and her husband Chris Hu were arrested on charges of acting as undisclosed agents of the Chinese government. Sun, who served under former Governor Andrew Cuomo and current Governor Kathy Hochul, allegedly influenced state policies to align with Chinese interests. She blocked Taiwanese officials' access to the governor's office, shaped government messaging, and facilitated a potential political trip to China. In return, the couple received benefits, including business support for Hu and luxury gifts. They laundered the proceeds to purchase properties and luxury items. Sun was fired in March of 2023 after misconduct evidence was discovered. This is probably not going to affect this cycle, but you know, been a lot of Chinese spies discovered as working for Democrats. Now, I don't necessarily think that they only work for Democrats. I'm sure that there are some that work for Republicans, but we had Dianne Feinstein's driver, apparently a 20-year communist Chinese spy. Governor Cuomo, Governor Hochul, an aide there. Let's not even get into Eric Swalwell's Fong Fong, who apparently was a honeypot for a couple different politicians. But yeah, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Something to keep an eye on. Senator J.D. Vance is adopting a bold media strategy that you might have already picked up on. He has decided to do any interview, anytime, anywhere, and specifically is going to mainstream outlets that don't normally feature long-form interviews with Republican candidates. J.D. Vance did all of the Sunday shows over the past few weeks. He did 3 of them in one weekend and then did Meet the Press after they were back from their Olympic break, and will appear on the New York Times The Interview podcast. Vance will appear next week on the All In podcast, which is hosted by Silicon Valley heavyweights, and he is negotiating with NPR and other podcasts to do this the same. Now, this strategy does often attract viral attention among the base of the Republican Party. I think it does show, it gives the right reason to like him. But there does not seem to be a lot of evidence to say that it is endearing him with the middle, which is the reason why he would be going on these things. He is still underwater in his approval rating compared to Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota. It is pleasing one very, very important constituent, and that is Donald Trump, who reportedly believes that Vance is a great political talent for his ability to do these shows. Whether or not it's working, it certainly is a matter of effort. Vance has appeared in mainstream interviews more than Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, or Tim Walz combined since the conventions. Or really, since Kamala Harris and Tim Walz were anointed. And finally, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is suing the North Carolina State Board of Elections to remove his name from the 2024 presidential ballot. Kennedy, who suspended his campaign and endorsed Donald Trump in August, wants to withdraw his candidacy in states where the race could be tight, North Carolina among them. However, the state election board, controlled by a Democratic majority, has denied his request, citing that 67 of the state's 100 counties have already started printing ballots and that reprints would be costly. Kennedy argues that the denial violates state election laws and his right to free speech. The free speech did not appear on the ballot, apparently, which has led him to seek immediate court injunctions. Despite opposition from the board's 2 Republicans, the board has decided not to delay the absentee ballot deadline, meaning that Kennedy's name will likely appear on those ballots unless a court intervenes. Because Veep is not a comedy, not simply a comedy, it is one of my favorite comedies of all time, but also a documentary. There is a scene where during a recount in Nevada, the Selena Meyer campaign is flipping back and forth between stop counting the votes and count all the votes. The Democrats have worked very hard to keep RFK Jr. off the ballot over the last several months, and now they are working very hard to keep him on. Again, blood sport, baby. Blood sport. This is not the time for humility. This is not the time for honor. This is the time for winning. And that is what both of these parties are going to do. That is your update. TakePoliticsSeriously.com is where you need to go if you want to get 2 bonus episodes each and every week. We covered all those J.D. Vance interviews on our Sunday show, where we go over all of the clips from the Sunday programs, let you know what the campaigns, what DC, what the power players believe you should be talking about. It gives you a little bit of a window into their strategy. We break that down weekly. And then, of course, on Thursday, we do our late edition where, all the news that is breaking constantly, especially over these next few weeks, it's going to be huge. So head on over there right now. TakePoliticsSeriously.com. At the $3 level, you get your bonus 2 podcasts each and every week. And now, Jen Briney. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Jennifer Briney of Congressional Dish, and We're Not Wrong. How you doing, Jen?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back.
We just got off the road from both conventions. How are you feeling? Now you have covered as an accredited member of the press both of the Republican and Democratic conventions. How do you feel?
Yeah, that was actually personally exciting. I do feel like just being able to be in the room and be accredited by the actual House of Representatives was really exciting for me, and to be there and to see it and to really feel it. Just kind of get the, I hate this word and I keep using it, but vibes of both conventions. That was valuable to me in a way that I wasn't expecting. I really wasn't expecting to learn much there, but I did. I understand the people in the party better. And I feel like I understand the leaders a little bit better too, just by being around them and seeing how they talk to each other and just operate. It was fascinating to be a fly on the wall.
They're not all that interesting. Both of these conventions were extraordinarily interesting on like historic terms. The Republican convention comes after the nominee was almost shot to death in the head. And then the Democratic convention comes only weeks after they dump their nominee and replace her with somebody else. And it turns out swimmingly, at least in terms of enthusiasm. Let's focus on the DNC, though, because how would you compare? Let's go on the vibes. How would you compare the vibes between the RNC and the DNC?
So comparing them, they were both a party. And I guess that wasn't really something I was expecting. I wasn't expecting so much dancing and just straight up partying from these people. I would say that the Republican one, that one felt a little bit more like a straight party. Like there was a lot more dancing. There was a lot more downtime during the convention nights where they had the band playing. And, that one was it was a Trump carnival. That's what I keep calling it, but that's the only way I can describe it.
I think I called it in one of the PX3 episodes. It was, the MAGA kingdom, the Trumpiest place on earth. It was very amusement parky, but down to the live band, it felt like a summer party at a golf course or something like that. It was just a constantly going. I was shocked that there weren't plates of hors d'oeuvres somewhere for people to pick up little salami rolls.
Well, I compared it to a Jimmy Buffett concert because there was a figurehead there that was bringing everyone together. And I did find that helped me understand the MAGA people a lot better, because it wasn't necessarily that they loved Trump or even his policies, but as long as they had Trump on their body somewhere, they were in the club. And that really explained to me, because I met so many people there that were clearly deeply religious. And then there's this, porn star Stuppen guy that they're celebrating. I was like, I don't understand. But after I spent time with them, it made a lot more sense, because it's not really about him. It's kind of about each other. And they were lifelong Republicans. They've always been team Republicans. So he's Republican. So okay, this is our guy. It just made a lot more sense to me. And at least as far as the people are concerned, they don't feel as sinister as I think they kind of did after the whole January 6th thing. I don't really worry about the people, although Trump's speech, and he was so off the rails. I was like, okay, you're still a problem.
I think he could have went longer. I'm waiting for the DVD so we can get the extra scenes that they cut, like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. So that was just weird. I think that would be weird for anyone to be in that situation if you weren't, in the Team MAGA party. The DNC felt also like a party. There was a lot of joy and all that nonsense. But I also was very aware that I was amongst people that were in the pursuit of power, that were feeling powerful. I got the icks in a very different way, like, oh, you're the people running the world. And yeah, so it was a party vibe, but at the same time, I felt the pursuit of power more.
I'm so glad.
I talked to.
I'm so glad that you said that, because I only spent one night there because I had to get back because Ashley was rounding the final corner on her pregnancy with my daughter. But I had the same feeling. Like I was watching everybody, and everybody's having this time, and they're clapping and they're dancing around, and I was watching everything. I was covering it, and I'm like, man, I don't know why there's a disconnect here for me. And part of it was something that we did see together on Monday night during Joe Biden's speech. And that was a protest from the corner of the arena, which was a big banner, I believe, saying "Stop Arming Israel," if I am not mistaken. But from your vantage point, because you had staked out prime seats in the C-SPAN suite that was nice enough to allow us to put our bags down and sit down to watch the programming. You described that process
of the banner situation.
Yeah, just what you were watching it a lot closer than I was, and I think you were taking like pictures and videos.
I was, and then I got some information about it after the fact as well. There were 3 delegates that unrolled, so they were in the suite, and right behind the Florida delegation, they unrolled this banner, and it was white but had the colors of the Palestinian flag. It said "Stop Arming Israel." This was right in the beginning of the president's speech, and so what I noticed, like, I first heard it before I saw it because there was a big commotion down there. There were people yelling, and they were using these so the banners that were being held by all of the delegates were handed out by the DNC, and they were tall banners that were on PVC pipes, and they said, "We love Joe." And they started hitting one of the delegates with the PVC pipe banner, and so I think that's what started the yelling. So I heard it first and started filming, and so the other delegates used those banners to hide the "Stop Arming Israel" banner. Because there was so much commotion, they started a "We Love Joe" chant in the middle of one of his sentences. And then they like pulled the "Stop Arming Israel" banner down. They then the DNC shut off the lights to the entire section, because at this time I also looked over at Anderson Cooper, and he was like bored the whole time except for this moment, and he kind of looked at the whole thing. So it felt to me like the media might have been getting ready to show this, because it was fascinating. So they shut off the lights and escorted the delegates out of the arena. So that's where Amy Goodman came in, and she was right there. I don't know how she's always in the right place, but she was right there and interviewed the delegates as they were being taken out of the arena by security. And one of the main guy was a Jewish delegate from Michigan who said, you know, when we were taught about the Holocaust, we were taught that never again meant never again for everyone, and was essentially saying, we don't feel like this party is listening to us. And as the DNC went on, that was the theme. And that's actually what I decided to focus my Congressional Dish episode on, because it got to the point that there were delegates that staged a sit-in. They ended up sleeping all night outside of the arena.
Yeah, let's get to that in a second, because that's something that I feel is certainly a part of this, but is another phase of it. I want to stay on that moment, because that's the moment where I was like, ooh, there's something very calculated. And all of a sudden, a lot of what was interesting to me about the DNC became very, very clear. And I'm going to say calculated, because calculated is something that is without judgment. Mm-hmm. I would say you could go as far, if you wanted to be pejorative, as sinister. But when the lights went out, I'm like, that doesn't happen unless there's a protocol. Yeah. Unless you were expecting this, and there was somebody that could talk into a walkie-talkie that could get a specific, because it wasn't a quarter of the arena. It was literally just that section that they turned the lights out, which, by the way, made it look
fast. real fast. We're talking within maybe 90 seconds.
So here's the things that click to me. Compared to the RNC, there was a lot less room on the floor, on the delegate floor. Like, for example, on the final night, you had not been on the floor for the RNC. I was like, go on the floor. You should go on the floor. It's, you're here. You might as well go. You were able to go. There's a system for reporters. You trade in a thing, you get another thing. You get 45 minutes on the floor, but you can wander around. You can talk to the delegates. There's a bunch of politicians there. It's where you
at the stage when Hulk Hogan came out. Like, I was
there. We go.
The stairs. Yeah.
Yeah. The DNC had no room on the floor at all except for delegates. And on the final night, they shut off access entirely to the floor. That Florida delegation wasn't even on the floor. They were in the lower bowl because they had pushed up delegates so far. I was in the C-SPAN suite talking to Kurt Beto of National Journal, and I'm like, you want to know what's super weird? Is that they have this gigantic ramp, this accessibility ramp that takes up like 1/5 of the floor. And initially I'm like, well, that's a weird design decision, but I guess Democrats care about accessibility, and so that's what they did. And then as soon as that happened, I was like, oh, they wanted to totally control access to the floor. And so they eliminated space so journalists wouldn't be on the floor. Nobody, they created a choke point so nobody could be on there. And then those signs, which you've seen, if you go back and look at any of the big speeches, they all have these it's strange because I have not seen them before, but they were very long poles with very thin signs on it. Normally you just have, two-hander, the same kind of yard sign stuff that you would show. But then as soon as the banner got unfurled, it was almost as if people had been informed, delegates had been informed, this is what you should do if something happens. They all moved their signs, which were tall, and therefore, if you had enough of them, you could fully block out whatever was on any kind of protest. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is like, especially with the backdrop of what was true enthusiasm, true joy. Yeah. It was like,
for some people,
mandatory joy. It was hey, we're joyful, right? We're joyful right now.
Yeah. And to even add to your, what I think is correct conspiracy theory, by the end of, I want to say Tuesday, so the next day, the day after you left, people were getting really frustrated who were in the media who had floor passes.
Yeah.
Because they were being told all kinds of nonsense things. So like my pass, I was told by someone that you can't use this after 2 p.m., which made no sense at all. But if you go to someone else and then they would tell you something completely different. And this was going on from Tuesday through Thursday, where it really depended on who you talked to, what the rules were for the floor passes. There were also more credentials that were being given out. So there were credentials for each level of the stadium that weren't there Monday, but were there by Thursday. I got bumped by Sky News because I didn't have the credential to get onto the 8th floor, even though I had the media pass. Yeah, it was absurd. And so there were people, like the elevators were completely smashed because, they're trying to check credentials to even get to that. It was bonkers the way that they controlled stuff, except for Media Row. Any asshole could come onto Media Row, which made my job really hard. But yeah, the floor, like anywhere where the cameras were going to be showing the entire nation, was on lockdown the whole time. Yeah. And it only got worse as the
it was so it did get worse. I guess that was the other question that I would have for you, is that we were up in the C-SPAN suite, which was far harder to get to in the DNC than it was the RNC. The RNC, we just walked up to a door, knocked on it, and we were there. Here we had to have an escort. We had to have the nicest man in all of DC and media and possibly the world come down and get us. But so it only got more locked down then.
Oh yeah, it was crazy. Like you would think with the past that I had, because it was full-blown media, had the floor pass, everything. The fact that they wouldn't let me on the 8th floor, which was where all of the cameras were.
Yeah.
Like, I should have been allowed up there. But because I didn't have the 8, they weren't letting me up there. They didn't let me on the suite floor, which is where C-SPAN was, even though I was welcome there by the C-SPAN people every night of the convention. Like, they just made it really hard for anyone to get around. I mean, the logistics in general were pretty poor. So for a while, I was just like, maybe they're not organizing this well. But I also noticed the same thing with the ramp. And then when they just made it so hard for the media to get onto the floor, I was like, this feels intentional. And the turning off of the lights, that's where like the conference changed for me in my head the minute those lights went off.
Because that's like Truman Show. That's like there's somebody who's like Ed Harris who's just like turn off the lights and boom, because we went out like that. Like they were very much on guard. They did not want anybody to spoil that party, and that is the biggest difference, at least in terms of the RNC and the DNC, is that the RNC, which is certainly not immune from internal divisions. They have their internal divisions. They were just not on display at the RNC in the way that the DNC there was, and it was solely on Gaza. It was solely on what is happening right now in with Israel and Hamas. So let's get into the uncommitted delegates, because there's two things I want to get to. The first is how this situation came to be. So explain to everybody the uncommitted delegate situation just in general.
So this is coming straight from the uncommitted delegates, because there were some rumors about this. On Wednesday night, now some background on this, the uncommitted delegates wanted a Palestinian speaker. And they had been working. And actually,
let's rewind just real quick before that. Sure. During the primaries, when Joe Biden was running, but barely running, there was a push for voting uncommitted to protest what was happening in Gaza. That was statistically relevant enough that they were able to send delegates to this convention. That's part of the Democratic Party. That's part of how the primary system works. So these were credentialed delegates sent by the rules of their states to this convention. Yes, and so what they wanted was a speaker.
These are party loyalists. These are people that knock on doors, do all the work. Like, these are Democrats. And so they had been working for 2 months. They had a list of names, and all of them, I believe, were elected officials. But there was one in particular that they wanted. She was a state representative. I can't remember her name. But she had submitted her speech, and I know that at least Ro Khanna had read it. It was pretty mild, didn't call for the arms embargo or anything crazy, but it was like, he found it to be acceptable. I read it. I didn't see anything.
I read it. The only thing that I could even imagine as being flagged as anything was there was a line of releasing hostages on both sides. I forget the exact verbiage on it, but if you wanted to say, that means that you release every Palestinian that is under Israeli, in an Israeli prison, then that might be a red line. But even then, that's like among the more mild of the incredibly controversial things that are being debated with that issue. Yeah,
it was a very mild speech. I don't think that there was anything it wouldn't have ruined the joy. Let's just say that. And in fact, there were so many people there that were uncomfortable with the fact that the Palestinian issue was being essentially ignored, that I think the joy would have been taken up quite a bit had that speech been allowed to be given. But they were told on Wednesday night, so this is the night before the last day, that there would be no speaker allowed, and they were given no reason for that whatsoever. It was just nope, we're not allowing it. And so
I'll tell you the reason. It's because they couldn't believe that they fell for it. That was the reason. Like that was always going to be the banana in the tailpipe, and bless them for having faith in their party, but there was zero chance. I mean, if they couldn't put a speaker on at 5:30 in the afternoon on Monday, then they were never going to do it. Like, it was either going to be incredibly marginalized, it was never going to be prime time, or it wasn't going to happen. And by the time that Wednesday rolled around and I heard that news, I was like, boy, I can't believe that they let it get to that point.
I mean, they were trying to work within the party because, as they explained to me, like Asma Muhammad is the person that I interviewed, and she was explaining, I am a Democrat. I'm a lifelong Democrat. I don't think that the Trump administration would be better for this cause than the Democrats, and I just want to be represented in this party because we say we're a big tent. And I don't think that was a crazy thing to expect, especially, and so there was a lot of people that connected the sit-in that they did after receiving the news that there would be no Palestinian speaker. They connected that to the fact that there was an Israeli hostage's family that had just spoken on the stage.
Yeah.
And they actually called what was happening in Gaza a massacre. And so Asma was like, yeah, I mean, they even said it. And I don't remember even that being said in the Palestinian speech that was submitted. And she's like, so the fact that they got to speak, we were honored to hear them speak. I don't see, like, they were baffled why they wouldn't allow an elected Democrat with Palestinian heritage to speak. And so they slept outside the entire night, made no difference whatsoever as far as the party was concerned. It was.
I will note, if it was where it looked like it was based on the social media stuff, it was literally right in between the media tent and specifically the trailers for all the television talent. All of the television talent had to walk between there and the United Center to get in.
It was that, and it was also between the United Center and the shuttles. So if you were one of the thousands of people taking these buses to go all over Chicago, you had to walk right by them. Yeah. So everybody saw them, everybody knew it, and you could feel like, when you were on the shuttles or in the security line, everyone was talking about the protests, even though if you took the shuttles to and fro, you never saw a protester. They kept them so far away, but their presence was felt the entire time. And the shuttle lines were so long that there were people in the shuttles being like, we're kind of vulnerable out here waiting for 2 hours on these shuttles if the protesters come and find us. So they were always present. They're like, everyone that was there knew that was a part of the convention that showed disunity. And so to pretend that it wasn't there, it was gross. It was just gross. That's the only way I can describe it. It was a shame.
I think at their worst, and the Democrats have been like this since Obama, but they got away with it with Obama because Obama was legitimately really popular, but they would just not deal with stuff when Obama had with Obama. Like, I remember specifically the do you remember Fast and Furious, that scandal?
Yes, with the guns going over
with the guns. And so the US was, as a front, selling guns to a Mexican gang, and one of the guns actually killed an American. I believe he was a DEA agent. And the Democrats just closed ranks around Eric Holder. And it was one of those things where I'm like, look, whether or not that was a good idea, whether or not it's right for us to do it, usually when something goes that wrong on something that was, it's a little out of pocket, let's say it's a little blue sky idea thinking, a little galaxy brain, usually somebody gets fired, closed ranks. But Obama was really popular. And what happened with Hillary and what happened with Biden in 2020, but that was so weird because of COVID. And now, especially with Kamala, at their worst, the Democrats can be kind of Orwellian. Like it is kind of like, no, we're not going to take our lumps. Even if the lump is one speaker for 15 minutes, give her 8. Because I don't think that speech was long. It was 5 minutes.
5.
It was like, get on stage. You have 5:30 to 5:35. You're going to open the program, not but the 20 people who have made it through security, because nobody was making it through security on time. Nobody's going to see you, but at least we can say that we allowed you to do it. If you want to have sour grapes past then you can have sour grapes past then. They didn't even give them that. No. They didn't even do that.
And what's Orwellian too is it just, the Democrats seem to be going, well, what are you going to do? Vote for Trump?
Yeah.
And that made me really uncomfortable because it's like, the Republicans have gone pretty crazy. And so it does feel like the Democrats know that they have to represent the rest of us, and they do kind of have us held hostage politically. And I felt that in that convention because there was very much like, oh, you're worried about all the dead people in Gaza? What are you going to do?
Yeah.
And it didn't have to be that way. Like, the bar was set so low. They just wanted this very mild speech, and like they didn't have to shut the lights off on the banner. It was already down. So they just went so overboard in silencing this substantial group of people that, by the way, it's not just Democrats. Like, there are Republicans in my life that are like, yeah, what Israel is doing is really wrong. So they actually could have appealed to independents and Republicans by just acknowledging the reality that the Palestinian people are going through. And
well, at least what there was look, if we're going to get into the primary process, which, didn't matter, then mattered, then didn't matter. It is Schrodinger's primary. It both matters and doesn't matter at any given time. But that's the way it works. You get the delegates that go there. They had to deal with that with Bernie. They had to deal with that whenever you have a contested primary. There are sometimes people that go, you got to sweet talk them. You got to give them a little something. That's just how it works. The only other thing that I found, and we can kind of wrap it up here, or I want your opinion on it rather, the roll call. Because the roll call did not really happen.
Yeah.
What was the feeling in the room with the roll call?
Honestly, I wasn't there.
You weren't there.
I wasn't in the room because it was fake. So what am I going to like? And I'll tell you this about the roll call. I think that's a really exciting moment for Democrats, or not Democrats, for delegates. It was very exciting for the people at the Republican National Convention. Like, they were excited to be in that moment where it's like, we are nominating this person.
Yeah.
The Democrats denied their delegates that. And I ended up switching hotels because the hotel prices dropped in half after the virtual roll call was done.
Yeah.
I think a lot of delegates just straight up didn't go, because why go if the roll call is fake? And so even though I think that might be one of the reasons that they structured the stadium the way they did, I'm wondering if there was just a lot of no-shows, and so they kind of had to fill the floor. Because my hotel, it was $800 a night, and by the time I booked it, it was $400. And I talked to the manager of the hotel, and he told me that after the virtual roll call happened, his occupancy dropped by 40%. And he had heard that.
So there were cancellations. Yeah.
Oh yeah, a whole wave.
Yeah.
And when I asked about the timing, he said, yeah, it was after that roll call happened. So I don't think they treated their delegates well in a lot of different ways.
When I saw the clip of Lil Jon, and I got sent that a lot because I love Lil Jon, and it was super fun, and you got all this stuff. It's like, oh man, the DJ, and they're playing the songs, and the delegates got to pick which song it was, and the California delegation they played They Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar. Oh my God, how cool is that? And I'm like, man, that is cool. That is really, really fun. Mm-hmm. Ice cream's fun.
Yeah.
You want to know when ice cream feels a little weird? When your dad brings you to ice cream because he hit you. Like, that's
such a good analogy.
like, is this a pizza party because you totally disrespected this process? Like, there's like, it was just like, is this too fun? This is not some, look, if you want to reimagine it and you want to say like, this should be different, it should be more telegenic, it should feel more like a television event, that's fine. But it didn't really matter. Nothing really mattered. And also, I don't know if you noticed this, the ability to have it not actually be the roll call meant that they never had to say that there were uncommitted delegates.
Yeah.
They normally have to say when you go state by state, you say, we have X amount of delegates for an example with the RNC for Iowa. It's like, we have 5 for Ron DeSantis, 3 for Nikki Haley, and with 127, we have Donald Trump, right? But you have to list everything. They didn't have to do nothing. No. It was just turned down for what? And then, boom, just we cast all of our delegates for Kamala Harris because it doesn't matter. They could have said supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. It didn't actually have anything to do with the nominating process.
Yeah. If I have one regret about how I played the DNC, and I do regret this, I wish I recorded more of my conversations with the delegates, because especially in the security line, because we were in it for an hour each time, I did bring up the fact that Kamala was elected by no one. And it was like, how
dare you mention
Yeah.
it? Like it was the thing that you weren't allowed to speak about. It was a very uncomfortable feeling, and I kept doing it just to see, like, is it just this group of people or is it everyone? It was everyone. It was never spoken about on the stage. There was no promises to be better in the future. It was just like, well, what are you gonna do? Vote for Trump? Like it was disturbing, honestly.
The other metaphor that I used on PX3 leaving is like to compare the vibes. The RNC was like, Dad had a heart attack. He's fine now. It's a miraculous recovery. And now the rest of the family's like, you want to know what? We're just happy that Dad's here. Let's all be really happy. Dad's home. Let's all gather for Thanksgiving. This is a fun moment. We're able to bury some hatchets, hold hands, and appreciate the big old man. This one was like a family that was like really screwed up. Like the dad's about to get fired. The mom has gotten swindled on like 3 multi-level marketing schemes. The daughter's like yelling at her mom because she wants to go fly to Dubai by somebody who slid into her Instagram DMs. And like the son borrowed $100,000 to invest in a Logan Paul crypto coin. Like there's big problems. And then they win the Powerball. And it's like right now, there's no problem. Dad's not getting fired. He's retiring. We'll just throw all the multi-level marketing stuff away. The money from the crypto coin doesn't even matter anymore. Tell Saeed to come fly from Dubai here. He can have lunch, meet the family. Like there's all this right now. But God forbid you mentioned, hey, weren't you going to get fired?
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're not allowed. We're different people now. This Powerball winning, this money's going to last forever. This joy, this momentum, it's going to last. Don't you say otherwise, or else you might jinx it.
Yeah, it was like a manufactured fantasy land where, the Trump thing felt like actual fantasy land. You're like, okay, at least this feels authentic. But
yeah, like that, down to the people that were like, he's ordained by God. And you looked them in the eye and they're like, oh no, they believe it. They believe, they're deeply religious people. They believe there's no way that the bullet misses. It's Samuel L. Jackson's character from Pulp Fiction. Like he just believes that this was a miracle ordained by God. And so it's like, there ain't no faking that. Nobody does that for fakesies.
Yeah. There was an inauthenticity to the whole thing. So, because I wanted to lean in. I'm a big Pink fan. They had better bands. I wanted to feel it. And there's moments, Michelle Obama's up there and everybody's cheering and she's being like, she is no longer they go low, we go high. She's like, they go low and we are just going to drop drone bombs all over you. Like she was firing it at Trump and she was funny and you want to get into it, but it was just like, I don't trust these people. Like
it was also spiteful. Like the tone of night one was very, very spiteful. Like that's why I thought Hillary Clinton, it was the best I've ever heard Hillary Clinton. And I don't think it was because she was any better than she normally is. I think that number one, she's been out of the rat race for long enough that I think she can be more authentic. And I've always said, I want to hear a very authentic. I want to hear Hillary 4 Chardonnays in, who her enemies are, what she really thinks of them, because I think that it would probably be very interesting. But I think also it's because the mood, the tenor of that room was very angry and very spiteful. And I think that that's Hillary's more natural thing is that she is somebody who's going to snap on you and crack on you. And it's like, it just felt like there was a harmony in a way that there wasn't a harmony in 2016.
There was an authenticity to her speech for, I think, 2 reasons. One is I think she genuinely wants to see a woman president in her lifetime. I think that really does matter to her. And you could tell she was like feeling those comments. And I think she genuinely hates Donald Trump.
Oh, big time.
Yeah. So that speech felt authentic because she was allowed to say those things. But yeah, there was... Yeah, it was weird. That's pretty much.
All right. Well, I wanted to get you on because you mentioned it on We're Not Wrong that I wasn't on. And I'm like, well, we're not going to go back and talk about it again on We're Not Wrong. So I wanted to have you on here so we could talk about it.
Well, thanks for having me. Plus, it's good to see you.
All right, it's good to see you as well. Yeah. All right. Congressional Dish. Is that DNC episode out already?
It is.
Yeah. It is. And does that have the episode or are you doing another episode with all the interviews you did with the Congress folk?
Yeah, eventually I'll do that because a lot of my questions were more how Congress functions type questions. So we have another government funding crisis coming up, so I might air it around that depending on what happens. But in this episode about the DNC, I aired the parts of my interviews with members of Congress that were about the situation with the Palestinians not getting to speak. And it was very much like, that was what I focused on in that episode, because really that's the story that I think was the most interesting thing about being there. I just don't think that people who weren't in the room understand how big of a deal that was.
Certainly if you were to watch the coverage of the convention, and I was live streaming it for the last 2 nights, but we were, of course, watching the C-SPAN footage, so we didn't have any talking heads other than me. I was the only talking head. But you would have no idea. If I were not following, the 2 things that I was following on night 4 was, or night 3 and night 4, were the uncommitted delegates sleeping outside and whether or not Beyonce was going to perform. Can you say who told you that she was going to perform? You said it was a member of a chief of staff of a member of Congress.
It was, but I can't remember exactly which person it was.
Jen, you're killing me. Come on, you got to. This is the scoop stuff.
This isn't the stuff that I was taking notes on. I thought that Beyonce was just a shoo-in. I didn't expect her to no-show. At the time that conversation was being had, the buzz in the arena was, okay, well, we know we're getting Beyonce. We might get Taylor Swift. And I was calling BS on the Swift rumor, but people were dressed up expecting Beyonce. Like, this had been going on for days. I had also heard in the C-SPAN suite that Beyonce's people were there on Tuesday. So that's...
Yeah.
I don't know.
Rumors were abound.
Oh my God, yeah. And we were so excited to the point that when Kamala came out to give her speech, we were looking at each other like, wait.
You ain't Beyonce.
Beyonce. Is she going to sing after Kamala? What's happening here? So I feel a little bad for Kamala because her applause was definitely like, wait.
A little confused, yeah.
Person.
Yeah, that was strange. Although they had 4 cracks at it to get their primetime speaker on in primetime, and they finally got it right on night 4. And if I were to wonder exactly why, if Beyonce were cut, or not cut, but there was some controversy about exactly how much time she was going to have, it would be because they were like, no, we are not. Biden ended his speech at 1:00 Eastern time. We are not doing that for Kamala. She's going to get on. She's going to give a 25-minute speech. She's going to get the hell off.
Yep. I agree.
All right. There we go. Jen Briney, Congressional Dish. Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
And that will wrap it up for us today. Politics is written and hosted by me, Justin Robert Young, for Dog and Pony Show Audio in Austin, Texas. Big thank you to Jennifer Briney, who not only hosts the immaculate Congressional Dish podcast, but also is my co-host on We're Not Wrong. You can find those podcasts wherever you find fine audio programming. If you want to send me an email, it is theyoungamerican@gmail.com. You can find me on TikTok, Justin R. Young, Instagram, Justin R. Young, and X, Justin R. Young. Our full-length video podcasts are on Politics on YouTube. That is youtube.com/@politics. And you can find the audio version of this show, px30podcast.com. Please support us with a one-time donation. PayPal.me/payjury is where you go on PayPal. Venmo is Justin-Young-20. Cash App is PX3Cash. And you can send me anything that you would like in the mail. P.O. Box 153184, Austin, Texas 78715. Again, that is Post Office Box 153184, Austin, Texas 78715. The only place you can get our bonus content is TakePoliticsSeriously.com. $3 tier gets you 2 bonus podcasts each and every week, covering all the news we miss on our free podcasting schedule. And our $10 tier gets your name read at the end of the show, like these fine folks in the Titanic $10 tier: Adam, Dr. Whiskey, CP, Sean, David Potts, Nicholas, Whiskey Wolf, Sparky from Stevens, Florida, Will Porta, Fat Tony's PJs from New York, Devon, the CFP, Gloria, Grayzone, Peapod, Jay, Marcus with a Q, DP4 Bongo, Sam, John, Niemeister, Edwin, and vote Gloria Young for King of the New World Order. Edison, Jeremy, a dog named Checkers, Sarah Jeannie, Matthew, Dr. G, Neil, His Nerdiness, Charles, Audrey, Stoll Adler, Spot, Darren, Idris Arslanian, Bluefront, and the Lenina, Berkeley, Steven, Chad, Zombie Doc, Matt, Chill, Adam, Chief Andy, Robert, Casey, Paul, Dustin, Brad, D-Laser, Nick, Just Another Pilot, Middle-Aged Mike, Utah, Jimmy, Montana, The Jen, Alo, D, Really, Craig, and Andrew. You want to join their ranks, only one place to do it, takepoliticsseriously.com. On Friday, we go back to the tape. This is the latest that we've ever done, some tape grinding debate prep, but I got to look up some Kamala Harris tape. We're going to look back to the past, to early Kamala Harris. We are going to look to her debate with Mike Pence. Might even go back and look at some of those 2019 debates where she had her biggest moment of triumph, humiliating Joe Biden, something that apparently has become a legacy for her. And then when she didn't do so well, like being humiliated by Tulsi Gabbard. That's coming up all on Friday. Till then, this is your old pal Justin Robert Young saying, some shows talk about politics. Others talk about politics. And still more discuss politics. But this is the only show that dares discuss all three.